They said a security guard should know her place. They said she was too quiet, too small, too soft for the job. But the moment he slapped her across the jaw in front of 30 recruits, every single person in that room learned a truth they would never forget. Evelyn Shaw didn't flinch. She didn't stumble. She didn't even blink. The smack echoed through the Iron Shield training gym like a gunshot, bouncing off the glass walls and polished floors. For one frozen heartbeat, the entire room went silent. The recruits stood in a loose circle, sweat dripping, mouths open, staring at the tiny blonde rookie they had spent all morning whispering about. That was the mistake. They saw a woman in a basic uniform. They saw a soft face, a quiet presence, a calm expression. They thought she had nothing behind her eyes. But Logan Price saw something else. Something that triggered every insecurity in him. He saw control. He saw discipline. He saw someone who didn't need to shout to own the room. And men like him hate that kind of woman. That's why he chose her as his example. That's why he tightened his grip on her wrist. And that's why, in the middle of a demonstration, he crossed the line. "See this?" Logan said loud enough for the back row to hear. "Liability. No strength, no initiative, no instincts. This is why we don't lower standards." Then he did it. He hit her. He didn't expect what came next. Evelyn's head barely turned, like her bones had been carved from steel. Something ancient and dangerous flickered behind her eyes. Not anger, not fear, but calculation. 2 seconds. That's all it would take. 2 seconds for everyone in that room to understand they had been standing beside a storm disguised as silence. What none of them knew, not Logan, not the recruits, not even the regional supervisors, was that Evelyn Shaw's true file had never touched a corporate database. You don't log classified missions. You don't document extraction ops. You don't record the names of the people who save presidents and vanish before the cameras arrive. And in this room, about to witness something unforgettable, none of them had any idea who they were dealing with. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where in the world you're reading this from. The silence after the slap wasn't normal silence. It was the kind that bends the air, squeezes lungs, and makes people aware of their own heartbeat. Sweat stopped mid-drop. A jump rope lay half-coiled on the floor, abandoned. The hum of the AC sounded like a roar. Evelyn Shaw just stood there. Her jaw stayed perfectly aligned. Her posture didn't break. Her breathing didn't shift. To anyone watching, she looked like a woman who had merely heard a loud sound nearby. Nothing more. Logan Price, head of training, mistook that stillness for weakness. He always had. He circled her with a predator swagger, knowing the entire recruit class was watching. His ego swelled with every pair of eyes fixed on him. He wasn't teaching anymore. He was performing. "That, ladies and gentlemen," he announced, pacing theatrically, "is what happens when someone walks onto my mat without the strength required for the job. Confidence without ability? Dangerous. Deadly. It gets people killed." He nodded to the recruits as if expecting applause. Nobody moved. Their eyes were locked on Evelyn, the woman who should have been trembling, crying, or stumbling backward after a blow like that. But instead stood perfectly calm, like she had heard these words 1,000 times before. Logan didn't notice their shift. He only noticed his narrative starting to slip. "Look at her," he pressed on, irritation flickering. "Frozen. Doesn't even know how to react. That's why standards matter." A recruit near the back swallowed hard, whispering to the woman beside him. She didn't freeze. She braced. But Logan continued his monologue, pacing in front of her like a man delivering a sermon to an invisible choir. "This job isn't daycare. This is the elite tier of private security. Executives, foreign officials, celebrities. You think someone who folds under pressure can protect anyone?" Evelyn's gaze shifted slightly, not at Logan, but at the distance between his feet and hers. Barely an inch. Too close for him. Too close for his own safety. He didn't see it. He never saw anything except himself. "Let me demonstrate something," Logan said, reaching again for her wrist, the same wrist he had squeezed too hard moments earlier. A bad idea. His worst one yet. The recruits leaned in unconsciously, a low ripple moving through the circle, as if the room itself sensed what was about to happen. Evelyn wasn't frozen. Evelyn was waiting. And Logan was already standing exactly where she needed him to be. Logan's fingers closed around her wrist again, tight, possessive, certain. He wanted control. He needed it. And this time, he squeezed harder, as if pressure could force the universe back into the shape he preferred. But Evelyn didn't pull away. She let him take her wrist. She let him believe he was driving the moment. She let him build the perfect illusion, so she could shatter it. "See?" Logan said loudly, turning to the recruits. "Zero resistance, zero instinct. This is the problem." A few recruits shifted uncomfortably. They weren't seeing what Logan thought he was showing. They were seeing a woman who wasn't afraid. A woman who was calculating. Logan lifted his free hand, preparing to demonstrate a second, more realistic strike. It was the kind of blow instructors usually stop an inch away from the trainee's face. Except Logan wasn't stopping this time. He wanted the shock value. He wanted the dominance. He wanted the final word. "Now imagine," Logan said theatrically, "this is an attacker who..." He swung, no telegraph, no pause, no warning. His palm cut the air toward her cheek in a sharp, arrogant arc. And Evelyn moved, not with speed, not yet, with precision. She tilted her head barely a centimeter, letting the strike graze past her skin like she had predicted the angle before he even threw it. The recruits gasped quietly. Logan blinked in surprise, thrown off by her lack of reaction. He swung again, faster. She shifted again, a breath, a whisper of motion. Still calm, still watching, still waiting. "Stop doing that," Logan hissed under his breath, anger cracking through his performance. "Doing what?" Evelyn asked softly, her first words that day. He didn't answer. He swung a third time, harder than before, driven by a bruised ego instead of instruction. And this time, he connected. A full, unrestrained strike to the side of her jaw. The gym exploded into shocked exclamations. A few recruits took involuntary steps forward before stopping themselves, unsure of the protocol. The slap echoed again, louder this time, like the building itself wanted the moment to be remembered. Evelyn's head turned half an inch. Her hair shifted slightly over her shoulder. Her expression stayed exactly the same. Unmoved, unbroken, untouched. Logan smirked, breath quickening in triumph. But the recruits saw it. All of them. Something in Evelyn's posture changed. Not anger, not tension. Purpose. The room shifted with it, like the air knew the countdown had started. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Evelyn Shaw was done waiting. The moment her posture changed, barely, subtly, almost invisibly, every recruit in the room felt it. A tension, a shift in gravity, a pressure in the air like the second before lightning strikes. Logan didn't feel it. Logan never felt anything except his own ego. He was still smiling, chest puffed, soaking in the attention he thought he had earned. "See?" he said, raising his voice for the crowd. "That's real impact. That's what happens when..." He never finished the sentence, because Evelyn moved. Not fast, not wild, not emotional. She moved with decision. Her right hand rotated inside his grip, slicing through the angle of his thumb joint with surgical accuracy. The recruits heard it. Click! His hold shattered like a cheap lock snapping open. Logan blinked, confused, his fingers suddenly empty. Then Evelyn's other hand came up, not as a fist, but as 2 rigid knuckles, striking the exact nerve cluster beneath his collarbone with pinpoint pressure. Logan's dominant arm went numb instantly, dropping to his side like dead weight. He gasped in shock. "What?" She didn't answer. She was already inside his stance, turning her body just enough to redirect his balance. Using his own forward momentum, she slid behind him with fluid, almost graceful precision. He stumbled, off balance, scrambling for footing, and Evelyn guided him down. Not violently, not recklessly, but with complete control. His back hit the mat in a controlled thud, his legs folding awkwardly beneath him. Evelyn was already kneeling over him, her knee pinning his good arm, her forearm across his chest. Not choking, not crushing, just commanding. The recruits stared, frozen, speechless. From the time she began moving to the moment Logan hit the mat, the entire takedown lasted less than 2 seconds. 2 seconds! Logan tried to speak, a pitiful, breathless wheeze escaping his throat. You can't do that. Evelyn tilted her head, her voice calm, almost gentle. You struck me. Twice. Full force, she said quietly. I reacted. Once, controlled. There was no pride in her tone, no emotion, just fact. The recruits whispered among themselves now, no longer hiding their awe. The atmosphere had shifted entirely. No longer a training demonstration, but a reckoning. And then, the glass doors at the far end of the gym opened, and in walked Mariana Ruiz, the regional director. Her heels clicked across the floor like a countdown. The moment she saw Logan pinned beneath Evelyn, her entire expression changed. Not shock, recognition. Something very big was about to be revealed. The gym fell into a deeper silence when Mariana Ruiz stepped inside. She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. Authority walked with her. Tall, poised, dark hair pinned into a flawless twist, a tailored suit sharp enough to cut glass. Every recruit straightened instinctively. Even Logan, pinned beneath Evelyn's knee, stopped struggling. Mariana's heels clicked across the mat, calm, deliberate, surgical. Her eyes swept the room in a single pass. Sweat, shock, awe. A pinned head trainer, and Evelyn Shaw. Calm, centered, perfectly balanced. Mariana didn't raise her voice. She didn't gasp. She simply stopped in front of them and said with unsettling composure, Evelyn, let him up. It wasn't a request. It wasn't reprimand. It was respect. Evelyn released Logan with the same control she used to take him down. She rose smoothly, giving him space. Logan scrambled, humiliated, struggling to get off the mat. His eyes flicked between Mariana and Evelyn, panic spreading in his expression. He tried to reclaim authority. Director Ruiz, he said, rubbing his arm as sensation returned. This trainee attacked me during a demonstration. I'll need to file a formal... Mariana didn't even look at him. Silence, she said. The single word sliced the air. Logan's mouth snapped shut. She turned to the nearest recruit. What happened? The young man swallowed. Ma'am, Lieutenant Price struck her. Twice. Full force. A ripple of discomfort moved through the group. Mariana nodded once. Then she turned to her assistant, who had appeared at her side with a slim tablet. Pull her file. Full dossier. Clearance tier Omega. Every person in the gym froze. Omega? Nobody got Omega clearance. Nobody. Logan blinked in disbelief. Omega? For her? She's a basic... Logan, Mariana said softly without looking at him. You don't know who she is, because you don't have the clearance to know who she is. Evelyn stood still, eyes steady, as if the unfolding storm had nothing to do with her. The assistant's tablet beeped. He looked at Mariana with wide eyes. File accessed, he whispered. Mariana took the tablet. She read for several seconds while the room held its breath. Her expression shifted. First recognition, then shock, then something close to reverence. Finally, she looked up. Everyone, listen carefully, she said. What I'm about to say does not leave this room. The recruits leaned forward. Logan went pale. Evelyn stared ahead, unflinching. Mariana lifted the tablet. You think you just watched a security trainee. You didn't. She turned the screen so everyone could see the first line. You were looking at the operative who protected the first family during the Caracas embassy crisis. Gasps broke through the room. Logan staggered backward, and Evelyn Shaw didn't move at all. The words hung in the gym like smoke from an explosion. The operative who protected the first family during the Caracas embassy crisis. Most of the recruits didn't even breathe. A few exchanged terrified glances. One whispered, "No way," under his breath. But Mariana Ruiz wasn't finished. She scrolled further down Evelyn's classified file, her eyes widening just slightly, barely enough to see unless you were watching her closely. Evelyn Shaw, she read aloud, formerly assigned to the International Protective Response Unit, embedded operative, crisis extraction specialist, clearance tier Omega 3. Every head turned toward Evelyn, but Evelyn kept her gaze neutral, shoulders relaxed, hands folded loosely behind her back, as if Mariana were reading someone else's resume. Logan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. Hard. Mariana continued. Successful evacuations, 12. High-threat escorts, 49. Unlisted crisis interventions. She paused, looking at the tablet again. Redacted. A cold hush swept the room. Redacted? That meant the stories weren't even allowed to exist. Mariana lifted her eyes slowly. Do you know what that means? She asked the room. No one answered. It means the things she survived are so sensitive, the government erased the files to protect national alliances. Several recruits instinctively stepped back from Evelyn, as if realizing they had been stretching beside a ghost, a weapon, a storm disguised as a quiet blonde woman. Mariana lowered the tablet at her side. She wasn't hired because of a diversity quota, she said. She wasn't hired because we needed more women on the lineup. Her voice hardened. She was hired because she's the single most qualified agent we've ever brought into Iron Shield. Logan's breath hitched. But, he stammered, her uniform, her placement, she's been doing door duty. Evelyn spoke for the first time since the takedown. By choice, she said softly. Logan whipped toward her, confusion twisting his features. Evelyn added, I asked for anonymity. After Caracas, after the rest, I wanted quiet work. Normal work. And we honored that, Mariana said, until you forced this into the open. The recruits turned to Logan now, anger, disgust, disbelief etched in their faces. He had hit her, twice, and bragged about it. Mariana took a step toward him. Logan Price, you assaulted a decorated crisis operative in front of your entire recruit class. His face drained of color. Effective immediately, she said, voice cold as steel. You are suspended pending formal review. Leave the mat. Logan backed away, trembling, and Evelyn stood exactly as she always had, calm, silent, a storm contained. Logan left the mat in a daze, walking backward like a man retreating from a cliff he hadn't realized he was standing on. No one touched him. No one spoke to him. The recruits parted instinctively, creating a wide aisle as if his disgrace were contagious. The gym doors closed behind him with a soft click. Silence took his place. Mariana turned toward Evelyn. Agent Shaw, she said quietly, are you requesting medical attention for the strike you received? Evelyn touched her jaw lightly. No, ma'am. No dizziness? No blurred vision? None. Her voice was steady, controlled, exactly as it had always been. Except now, every recruit heard it differently. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was composed, assured. The voice of someone who'd issued evacuation orders under fire. Mariana nodded. She pivoted toward the recruits. Listen carefully, she said. This moment will shape every one of you. How you train, how you lead, how you treat the quiet ones. The class stood rigid, eyes fixed on her. "What you saw today wasn't about gender," she continued. "It wasn't about rank. It wasn't even about the strike." She gestured toward Evelyn without breaking eye contact with the group. "What you saw was the difference between arrogance and discipline." A murmur rippled through the room. Not disagreement, agreement that tasted like regret. Several lowered their heads, remembering every time they'd rolled their eyes at Evelyn for keeping to herself. Every time they dismissed her as the soft one. Mariana continued, "You will meet 1,000 Logans in your work. Loud, dismissive, convinced they understand the world because they've watched a few simulations and passed a few tests." She paused, letting the words settle. "And you will meet, maybe, 5 Evelyns." The recruits straightened. 5 people in your entire career who carry their skill, not like a badge, but like a burden. 5 who have seen hell and choose silence over boasting. Evelyn's expression didn't change, but a flicker of something passed through her eyes. A memory. A place she didn't revisit unless forced. Mariana stepped closer. "Agent Shaw," she said softly, "I'm reinstating your full credentials. Effective immediately, you are cleared for advanced field instruction." The class inhaled sharply. "That means," she added, turning to them, "Evelyn Shaw will be part of your training team." This time, the room didn't gasp. They straightened with reverence. One recruit stepped forward hesitantly. "Agent Shaw, we didn't know." Evelyn met his gaze. "You weren't supposed to." She walked past them, calm as ever, towards the equipment rack, like the revelation meant nothing. But the recruits watched her as though watching a myth walking on human feet. Training changed overnight. Not because the curriculum changed, not because new rules were issued, but because Evelyn Shaw stepped onto the mat wearing her instructor badge. The recruits didn't cheer. They didn't whisper. They didn't try to impress her. They stood straighter. Because legends didn't need applause. They needed attention. Evelyn spoke without raising her voice. "Today, we start with control," she said. "Not strength, not speed. Control." She crossed to the center of the mat, the same spot where Logan had fallen. The recruits followed her like planets following gravity. "Most people fight to win," she continued. "Professionals fight to end the threat." She looked at each of them, slowly, deliberately, as if committing every face to memory. "Pick a partner." The room erupted in movement. But when Evelyn demonstrated each technique, the room snapped back into silence. Her movements were fluid, exact, almost surgical. She didn't slam, she redirected. She didn't dominate, she neutralized. Halfway through the session, Mariana stepped inside the gym. "Agent Shaw," she called, "I need you." Evelyn nodded and gestured for the recruits to continue practicing. Outside, the coastal wind cut across the base, carrying the smell of salt and diesel. "What's going on?" Evelyn asked. Mariana handed her a folder, red, stamped confidential. "Your strike clearance was reinstated this morning," Mariana said, "and within an hour, we received this request." Evelyn opened the file. Inside were photos, a family, a hotel ballroom, a crowd of political donors, a threat scrawled across a printed invitation. Evelyn's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "They want you to lead the protective detail," Mariana said. "High profile, high risk." Evelyn kept flipping through the pages, her eyes calm, absorbing details like a machine built for this purpose. Then she stopped. A familiar crest appeared on one of the documents, one she hadn't seen in years. Her voice dropped. "This is the same organization from—" "Yes," Mariana said softly. "The same one." The silence between them thickened. "Evelyn," Mariana continued carefully, "you don't have to take this assignment. After everything you've been through—" Evelyn closed the folder. "I'm taking it." Mariana exhaled. She knew there was no use arguing. "You leave tonight," she said. "Dress formal, It's a gala. Evelyn nodded and turned back towards the gym. The recruits were still training, stumbling through techniques she made look effortless. As she walked in, every head lifted instinctively. They saw her differently now. Not silent, not invisible. A force preparing for something only she understood. The black sedan waiting outside the facility wasn't the standard transport vehicle. Sleek, armored, tinted, this was federal-level movement, the kind reserved for people who mattered, or threats that did. Evelyn stepped inside without hesitation. The driver, a silent man in a charcoal suit, didn't speak. He simply offered a nod as the vehicle pulled away from the base, gliding into evening traffic like a shark slipping beneath the surface. In the back seat, Evelyn opened the folder again. Photos of the gala venue, blueprints, threat assessment notes, names. And then, the photo she lingered on, the family, a smiling couple, a teenage daughter, a security detail that looked more ceremonial than functional. She exhaled slowly. This wasn't a normal assignment. This wasn't a coincidence. Not after years of silence. When the car finally stopped, city lights shimmered across mirrored glass as the hotel rose like a pillar of luxury. Spotlights, velvet carpets, laughter floating out the doors. The gala was already in full motion. Evelyn stepped out. Instantly, whispers started. A blonde woman arriving alone, in a sleek black security dress uniform, tailored with precise edges, and a silver tactical pin at the collar. Too formal to be a guest, too calm to be intimidated. A hostess hesitated at the front. "Ma'am, guest list." Evelyn held up a badge. The hostess swallowed hard and stepped aside. Inside, chandeliers dripped crystal light onto polished floors. Dresses shimmered. Champagne pools sparkled in fragile glasses. A string quartet played for a crowd that never listened. People didn't see Evelyn until they did. A man near the stage nudged his friend. "Is that Secret Service?" Another whispered, "No, something higher." She scanned the room without appearing to. Entrances, exits, soft targets, hard barriers, security lapses. Where the threat should be, and where it wasn't. Then, a voice. "Agent Shaw." She turned. A woman in a deep navy gown approached. Mid-50s, elegant, composed, a familiar face. The face of the first lady she had once protected overseas. They looked at each other. Two women who'd survived the same night years ago. A night that still lived in Evelyn's memory, like a scar beneath the rib cage. "I knew they'd call you," the first lady whispered. "I told them you're the only person I trust." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "What's the real threat?" The woman hesitated, eyes flicking toward the balcony. "It's not the building," she said softly. "It's someone inside this room." Evelyn shifted her stance. Calm, ready. Invisibility was her shield. Competence was her weapon. And tonight, the past was coming back for a second round. The ballroom glowed with champagne light and polished smiles, but Evelyn felt the danger pulsing beneath it like a second heartbeat. The first lady leaned closer, her voice barely a breath. "He's here, Evelyn." Not a threat. Not an intruder. He. Evelyn's muscles tightened just enough to be noticed by someone who knew her. "Where?" Evelyn asked. The first lady's eyes flicked, just once, towards the balcony above the stage. Evelyn followed the glance without moving her head. Shadows, movement. A figure positioned too rigidly for a guest, too controlled, watching the first lady instead of the performers. A silhouette Evelyn recognized, her past, the man who had betrayed their protective detail years ago. The man whose intel leak nearly killed the first lady's family. The man Evelyn once dragged from the wreckage of an attack he helped create. Everyone thought he'd disappeared. He hadn't. He had been waiting. Evelyn walked through the ballroom calmly, weaving through glittering dresses and laughing guests who had no idea they were seconds from catastrophe. Her steps were measured, her breathing even, like she was moving through water instead of danger. She reached the staircase leading to the balcony. At the bottom, a server nearly bumped into her, tray shaking. "Sorry, ma'am." She offered a small nod. "Stay behind the column." He blinked, confused, and obeyed. She climbed the stairs silently. Halfway up, she heard it. A metallic click, not loud, but unmistakable. She reached the balcony rail just as the figure stepped forward, raising a silenced weapon aimed directly at the First Lady. Evelyn didn't shout. She didn't warn. She reacted. A single, fluid movement. Her body snapping into a maneuver so fast, the air cracked with displacement. She struck his wrist, weapon skidding across the floor. She swept his leg, his body collapsing. She locked his arm, pinning him with the same cold precision she'd used on the gym mat. The weapon dropped off the balcony. Guests screamed below. Security rushed in. But Evelyn didn't move. She knelt over him, her knee on his spine, her expression carved from stone as his breath hitched under the pressure. "You should have stayed hidden," she said quietly. He laughed bitterly. "You were supposed to die that night." "But I didn't," she replied. "And that's why you're still alive." Agents swarmed them, pulling him away. The First Lady hurried up the stairs, clasping Evelyn's hands with shaking relief. "You saved us. Again." Evelyn nodded once. It wasn't pride, it wasn't emotion, it was duty. As the ballroom calmed, guests whispered her name, no longer invisible, no longer underestimated. Evelyn Shaw had become something else entirely. A myth in heels and a security uniform. A woman the world laughed at once, who just saved it.